Hey there, writers and muse daters. Today I'm going to talk with you about feedback. It's something that writers spend a lot of time talking about. When I get on the phone with writers every single week, they talk about getting feedback from a wife, from a husband, from their parents, from their kids, and sometimes, and this one makes me cringe a little bit, from their writing group. And feedback is something that a lot of writers are doing, but that a lot of writers are doing wrong. And so today I'm going to talk about what that looks like and what you can do about it so that you're getting the right kind of feedback that's moving your writing forward instead of getting in your way. So the first problem that I see when it comes to feedback is that writers have every good intention. They think that they're helping themselves by getting this feedback when in fact they're actually harming themselves. They're actually hurting themselves. And these are the writers that you hear in so many other groups, right? Not in Write to Publish, but in other groups, these are the writers who say, why is it so hard to get published? Why is it so hard to write a book? Why do I always have writer's block? Those are the kinds of things that you hear. And this is interesting to me because they think that that's the problem. And there might be something real going on there, but oftentimes it's about getting feedback from the wrong source. And then that's actually what the real problem is that's getting in the way, why they're not getting the writing finished, why writing feels so hard. Now look, writing can be hard. And you know me, I'm a straight shooter. There's absolutely no shortcut to finishing a book, to publishing a book, but there can be an easier, simpler way. Here's another thing to remember about feedback. Feedback always comes through someone else's filter. It's always someone else's perspective, their worldview coming through and overlaying what it is that you've created. And I like to believe in altruism. I'm a Rotarian. I spent a Saturday recently collecting canned goods for people in need, people who are hungry. I believe that we can do good in the world. However, I also acknowledge that not everyone at all times comes from a place of truly wanting to help people. What does that look like? Well, let me tell you a story about something that happened to me actually when I was in high school. I was a freshman and I was really enthusiastic. I was super excited to be in high school and actually really enjoyed gym class because it was the one part of my day where I didn't have to be the serious student. You know, I was a serious student. I could just kind of let loose a little bit. And so in that particular gym class, I used to crack a lot of jokes and have a good time. And the person who I called my best friend at that time, you can decide whether you think she was a good best friend or not, turned to me one day and she said, you know, no one thinks you're funny. And I believed her and I stopped making jokes in gym class. And in fact, as I was writing storytelling for Pantsers, I had her voice in the back of my head, you know, nobody thinks you're funny. Now that's about getting into right relationship with your inner critic because I didn't listen to that and in fact went on to finish that book, publish that book, and that book has won a humor award, which is a pretty nice accomplishment considering that it's a book about writing. I also wrote for 3 seasons of comedy television. So clearly somebody out there thinks that I'm funny. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. The point is that my best friend wasn't trying to give me quality feedback. She was coming from a place probably of jealousy where she saw that I was getting a lot of attention from the kids in the class. And so she said something that wasn't actually feedback, that wasn't true, that people didn't think that I was funny. And, You know, that's a story about high school. I'm sure we've all got a lot of those kind of stories. The thing that's really sad about that is that I see that in a lot of writing groups. And you've heard me talk about things that can go wrong in writing groups and hashtag feedback horror stories, which we've talked about in Storytelling for Pantsers on Twitter all over the place. That type of behavior where someone is jealous or envious or has some type of negative emotion and then lashes out to a writer, I could spend the rest of the day talking to you about stories that writers have told me about instances like that. The problem comes, however, when writers, as I, as a high school student did, take that feedback seriously, in earnest. And that's the kind of thing, let's go back to the beginning, that makes writers say, why is writing so hard? Why can't I finish a book? Why can't I get published? How come I can't find an agent? It has to do with this wrong feedback loop, right? If you're listening to people who are giving you feedback that comes from the wrong place. And how can you know, right? If I had asked my best friend, like, oh, does that mean you're jealous? Or does that mean you don't like me? Or she would have said, oh, no, I'm just trying to help you. Right? So we don't always know where other people are coming from. The third thing, and you've heard me speak about this here in Write to Publish time and time and time again, is whether or not that person is qualified to give you feedback. And here's the mistake that so many writers make. Many of us are prolific readers. We hang out with people who are also prolific readers. Perhaps they are also writers, and we think, oh, well, they're like doing the same thing I'm doing. They must be perfect to give me feedback. In fact, 99.9999999 times out of 100, they're the wrong person to be giving you feedback. They're not qualified, right? If I'm learning to ski, the person who's in my ski class is not the person who's going to give me quality feedback on my form. It's the instructor who's going to give me the feedback on my form. The person standing next to me might give me a tip about how they stood up when they fell down on their skis last time, or the way that they're holding their poles that works for them. But my instructor is going to be the real expert on my form and how I should do that. So if I'm asking my pals in the ski class how to be a better skier, I'm a little misguided there. We often ask our fellow writers, our fellow readers, our neighbors, our parents, our children to give us feedback because we think that everybody knows how to read and write. Because, well, most of us do, in fact, know how to read and write. Our school system is pretty effective in turning out literate people. But just because someone knows how to read or write, just because someone reads or writes a lot, just because someone has gotten published, does not make them the right source for feedback. Why? Because there's so much more going on than just being an expert. I'm going to guess that most Olympic skiers would be really bad ski instructors for first-time skiers. They're so way up here on the expert level, right? They know how to jump off of those crazy jumps and do crazy moves. They are absolute experts in their field, as published authors are our top experts in our field. They're not able to make that connection to the beginning writer to say the things that will move that person's writing forward. They could probably tell you things like, you know, my publisher wouldn't go for this. That's not really helpful feedback to the beginner. So you want to be really careful about your source and where you're getting that feedback from. Why is that so important? Well, think about that story about me in high school, right? I had one comment from one person that changed the trajectory, really, of the rest of my high school years. And you don't care about that for me, but you do care about it for your writing career. Do you want to risk getting that one comment that's going to completely disrupt your writing career? Your trajectory to success? I don't think it's worth it. You have to decide for yourself what is important to you around feedback. my caution would be to get feedback from the right source. If you'd like to talk with me more about this, about the kind of feedback that you've gotten that hasn't worked for you, and the kind of feedback that you'd like to get, quality, constructive feedback from a publishing professional, I would love to chat with you about where you are, where you'd like to be, and how you can get there. I'd love to talk to you about the success that we've had in the writing gym and the people that we've been able to help who are exactly where you are. I've opened up some time in my calendar for next week. You can book yourself in directly. I'll throw a link into the comments section. It will take you right to my calendar. You can choose a time that works for you. We'll get on the call to talk for about an hour about your writing, where you'd like to be, and we'll take a look at what some solutions might be for you. There's no cost for this call. That's something I'm asked frequently. We're going to brainstorm some solutions for you during that call. This is an opportunity for us to get to know each other. I look forward to talking with you about your quality feedback.